What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the freedom to choose? The freedom to have a family and raise your kids according to your own values? What about living a wild, adventurous life, experimenting with music, relationships, or art? What does freedom really mean? What if freedom meant something that only a few Americans still understood? What if it meant that your choices and your values were set by you, rather than by some politician in a far-off capital? Some people think we're only free to choose to live exactly how they live, by their moral code, or their narrow worldviews. But if liberty means anything, it means that you, and you alone, have the power to exercise your rights to which the laws of nature and nature's God granted you. It's time to put these principles back into action. It's time to restore the American dream, activate in our communities, and take our country back. It's time to wake up, America. Good morning at 7:03, and you're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. It's time to rise in freedom. I'm back from Washington, D.C., and I couldn't be happier, honestly. The interview with Tim Pool went great, and if you missed it, please make sure to check out the episode from last Friday. I'll give you a recap at the top of the show. And is it time to scrap the regular 9-to-5 work schedule? At 7:30 this morning, we'll talk about the regular work week and why it may be out of date. And at 7:30 this morning, former top White House economist Vance Ginn talks about bureaucrats trading stock in companies that they oversee, insider trading, because they're the government and you're not. Plus, Elon Musk may fire as much as 75% of Twitter employees when his deal goes through in a few days. These are exciting days for freedom of speech. We'll talk about that at 7:49. And at 8 a.m. this morning, the big story. Math and reading scores of elementary kids dropped at the highest level ever during the pandemic. Are our kids getting dumber, or is our children learning exactly at the level that the feds want so they can have obedient, idiotic taxpayers? And accusations that the Karate Kid was too white have me ready to crane kick a liberal to the head. We'll talk about that at the bottom of the show. All that and more on the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing today? This week, I'm very excited to announce that we are going to be doing a YouTube Blitz. So this week, I'm asking all of our listeners who are watching us live or listening to us live to please join us over on YouTube this week. We've been doing an experiment the last couple of weeks where I've asked my listeners to please join us on a different social network each day. And that experiment so far has been tremendously successful. However, my appearance over on Timcast on Friday night blew up my subscriber count over on YouTube, and we're inching closer and closer to monetization over on YouTube. So I think what I'd like to do is this week, and we might do this until we get monetized on YouTube, this entire week, I'd like you to join me over on YouTube at AP for Liberty for the entire week. So each day, Monday through Friday, if you're on Facebook or if you're on Rumble or if you're on another social network and you want to help the show grow, please join us over on YouTube today, this morning at AP for Liberty. You don't have to. Of course, it's totally voluntary. If you hate YouTube or you'd rather watch us on Facebook or Rumble or Twitter or wherever you're watching us this morning, more than happy to have you watch us over there. Just trying to get a YouTube Blitz in this week. And welcome to all the new followers and subscribers and listeners who are joining us after the Timcast show on Friday. If you didn't get to catch the show, it was a really great discussion, a roundtable with myself, Tim Pool, Ian, who's the kind of left, is he a liberal, would you say, on the show? And then Luke Rukowski, who is an anarchist. And Luke Rukowski and I actually go way back in the early days of my political career. When I first started campaigning for Congressman Ron Paul's presidential campaign in 2008, Luke Rukowski and I were friends back in New York. So it was interesting because I hadn't seen him in maybe even a decade. It had been so long. But it was nice to have a good discussion with him. And if you missed it, the topic of discussion was the $2.7 trillion judgment that was allayed against, I guess, what would you call him, a podcaster or just a personality, a media personality, Alex Jones, for allegations that were made against him for statements that he said about the shooting in Sandy Hook, about the incident. And Alex Jones had a judgment made against him, not just by the jury, but by a judge who declared that Alex Jones should have to pay $2.7 trillion, more than the GDP of the nation of France, to the parents who the judge claimed that he defamed. And the discussion that we had on Timcast on Friday night revolved around this topic, and the question of whether or not what Alex Jones has said was protected free speech. And my argument during the show was essentially a summary reading that from Judge Andrew Napolitano's column that he wrote on this piece last week about how the reason why Alex Jones's speech is protected on this one is threefold. The first one is because of the obvious First Amendment, right? The freedom of speech. Congress shall make no law. But of course, when the Constitution was written and the Bill of Rights was drafted and then approved, the First Amendment only applied to federal Congress. Many people thought that the First Amendment applied to all the states, but it didn't at the time. We had to have a civil war in order for us to be able to apply the Bill of Rights to the states, which is really fascinating. And I don't want to go too much into a tangent this morning on a Monday morning, get too much into the weeds here, but how fascinating to consider that, living in the early 1800s in the United States, that you have this Bill of Rights, but it doesn't apply to the states, meaning that you have all these rights written down, but it's only Congress that shall make no law. The states could take away your rights all they wanted. The states could, if they wanted to, they had slavery. The states could establish a religion if they would, and many states wanted to establish official state religions. It wasn't until the Civil War that finally the 14th Amendment was passed, and with the passage of the 14th Amendment during the Reconstruction period in the United States, that finally the Bill of Rights began to become incorporated into the states, meaning that not only could the federal Congress make no law abridging the freedom of speech, the states could no longer abridge your natural rights, which I would argue to an extent was the intention of many of the founding fathers. But, just through a silly, slip of fate, the understanding of the Constitution or the interpretation of the Constitution made it such that, tyranny rose very quickly after the passage of the Constitution. The passage of the 14th Amendment and the ratification of the 14th Amendment meant that the states could no longer abrogate the individual rights of the citizens, meaning that the 14th Amendment should have been enough to protect Alex Jones's freedom of speech in this issue. But if that's not enough, and I know that especially with legal positivists, perhaps even moral relativists, people who claim that there needs to be some kind of modern law or case law that would protect freedom of speech or some kind of jurisprudence. There is jurisprudence for this. And the modern jurisprudence comes from a case out of the 1960s called Brandenburg v. Ohio. And in the Brandenburg v. Ohio, this is a big First Amendment case in 1969. The Supreme Court established that speech advocating illegal conduct is protected unless the speech is likely to incite imminent lawless action. Please excuse me. My throat's a little scratchy today. That trip that I went on, I think I caught a little bug while I was in Washington, D.C. It's the swamp for a reason. But the court also made its last major statement on the application of the clear and present danger doctrine. So this is, you can say, you have free speech, you can talk about public issues, but you cannot incite someone to violence, meaning you can't say, you need to go over there and kill that person, right? You can't do that. And that's what's called a clear and present danger. So the last major statement that the court made on that, the Supreme Court, was in 1919 in Schenck versus the United States. Oliver Wendell Holmes ruled that the government could punish speech if it posed a, quote, clear and present danger of bringing about the substantive evils that Congress may prohibit. So Brandenburg, the 1969 case, is the one that Alex Jones will be protected under. And ultimately, I think that this does go to the Supreme Court. This is what I argued on Friday night on Timcast, that Alex Jones is likely going to have been made into a martyr at this point. Whether you like Alex Jones, whether you hate Alex Jones, doesn't matter. He now has become an icon for free speech by his enemies in the United States. They have now turned him into a hero of free speech, whether you like it or not. And now it's looking as if this $2.75 trillion judgment brought against him, which is ridiculous, obviously ridiculous, again, bigger than the GDP of the nation of France, will go to the Supreme Court and will be thrown out by upholding Brandenburg v. Ohio. Clarence Brandenburg, for those who don't know, had addressed a small gathering of the KKK in a field in Hamilton County, Ohio. Now, during the address, Brandenburg was being a Nazi, right? Bemoaning the fate of the white Caucasian race. When have we heard this before? Why does this never go away? He made anti-Semitic statements. He made anti-Black statements and alluded to the possibility of revengeance in the event that the federal government and the court continued to suppress the white Caucasian race. He also announced that the Klan members were planning to march on Washington, D.C. on Independence Day. He was convicted of violating Ohio's criminal syndicalism law at the time in 1969, which made it a crime to advocate the duty or necessity or propriety of crime, sabotage, or unlawful methods of terrorism. He was fined and sentenced to serve 1 to 10 years in prison, but the Supreme Court eventually overturned his conviction. The case was ultimately very important in First Amendment jurisprudence. The Brandenburg matter received little attention in the Ohio court system, but can you imagine the ACLU actually standing up for white supremacists? But the ACLU actually used to stand for civil liberties, if you can believe it. But with the help of the ACLU and others, Brandenburg appealed, and his conviction was upheld in the Ohio Intermediate Court. The Supreme Court in Ohio declined to hear it, but the Supreme Court of the United States disagreed, and they granted certiorari. I have no idea how to pronounce this. Certiorari. So somebody text me, 573-319-1586. How do you pronounce that? Certiorari. It's Monday, and I haven't drank all my coffee yet, okay? But Brandenburg v. Ohio is the case that protected free speech. And Alex Jones, I believe, will have protected free speech, because when you're talking about an event of public importance, you're allowed to express opinions on events of public importance. And certainly the Sandy Hook case was an event of public importance. And opinions are always protected free speech. They always have been protected free speech, and they always will be protected free speech. What do you think about this? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. Albert Krockenfels this morning says he thinks that the judgment will be thrown out. Camellia says she argues that I would argue this is a good argument for private platforms having the right to ban people like Alex Jones. Chris Morrill says, imagine simping for Alex Jones. That's what I'm having trouble with. Well, here's the thing, Chris. The problem with that attitude is that you have to protect the rights of people, even those that you disagree with. It's kind of like the ACLU defending the KKK, right? The problem with the ACLU today is that they only protect the rights of people that they agree with. That's why no one likes the ACLU anymore, except for the most hardcore leftist progressive. A funny little story. When I used to live in Washington, D.C., I'll never forget, a buddy of mine and I we were just getting out of the metro going to work. And the ACLU is out there passing out flyers for civil rights, saying, "Oh, we need to protect people's civil rights." My buddy Mark got in their face. He goes, "What about the civil right to own a gun?" And they're just like, "Ba-da, ba-dee, ba-da, ba-da." And they had no idea. They didn't have any idea what to say. But yeah, the ACLU used to defend the rights of people that you agree with. And I'm not an Alex Jones fan. I've never watched Alex Jones's show. The last time I watched Alex Jones's show was back in 2008, when he was the only guy that would have Ron Paul on his show. So if I wanted to hear Ron Paul, I had to listen to, stories about the reptilian lizard shapeshifters, right? Now that's not my form of entertainment and media, but you know what? It is for a lot of people, and they have a right to watch it. And Alex Jones has a right to broadcast it. Maybe he doesn't have a right to broadcast it on somebody else's platform. If Twitter or Facebook or Amazon or people like that don't want to platform Alex Jones, that should be their right and their freedom. Alex Jones should have to set up his own servers and broadcast his own show on his own network, and but that's his right to do so. And if he has an opinion about a case of public importance, he can say whatever he wants about that issue of public importance. And the judge in Connecticut who declared that his opinion is not an opinion is completely wrong. A judge should never be able to say, well, that's not your opinion. That's not the government's job. All right, coming up next, what is the government's job? To set a 9-to-5 work week? To set 40 hours a week? I don't think so. Maybe it's time to reevaluate the 9-to-5 work week. What do you think about that? Send me a text, 573-319-1586. I got lots more exciting content for you. I've got great guests, Van Skin. I sent a text message to Corey DeAngelis to try and get him on the show this morning at 8 a.m. I don't know if I'll hear back from him to talk about, is our children learning? I don't know. Is they? Or are they? We'll talk about all that when we get back on the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Morning again in America. Our country is prouder and stronger and better.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning. It's 7:23, and you're watching the Wake Up America show and listening to the Wake Up America show on the podcast later. If you're downloading us, thank you for doing that. Welcome. It's time to rise and freedom. Is the 9-to-5 work week dead? We're going to talk about that in just a moment. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. There's so much exciting happenings, so many exciting happenings going on. I can't even tell you about. If you could read these documents that I have in my hand right now, if you could see what's on them, if you could go through all 1 through 9 pages of all of the excitement that's happening on these pages for the future of this program, I mean, you would be thrilled. I wish I could share this with you yet, but I haven't decided to yet. It's almost time though. I've got some big, exciting news for you. You're going to have to keep watching the show every day until I drop the news. Could be this week. Could be as early as tomorrow. Maybe the next day. I mean, this is... And I got somebody in here watching the show with me today. That's some more exciting news. And he's pretty excited about it. He or she, whatever he wants to be. Whatever pronoun they want. That's more exciting news. I mean, I got exciting news. And it is a news show. You think I'd share the exciting news. But because it's not like, CNN or Fox News or anything like that, it's more like an opinion show. I can kind of do whatever I want, so I can tease you all I want. Get y'all hot, slippery. You'll just have to wait, but it's coming soon. Don't forget to send us a text at 573-319-1586. Tony Allegra is up and early this morning. Tony's one of our monthly subscribers, and we're super grateful to have him supporting the show. We've got a lot of people who have signed up for a monthly subscription. Have you done that yet? Because what are you waiting for? Your financial support helps us to grow and get big and spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty all over the world. You can head over to the website, wakeupAmericaShow.com/support, and give us a monthly donation. $5 a month would be great. But I recommend the Peterson's Patriot Plan, $17.76 a month. The holidays are coming. You get a 20% discount on my shop for becoming a monthly sponsor. And this week, we're doing the prize drawing, the first giveaway. Well, we already gave away that awesome sign, but we're going to do another giveaway this week from the AP for Liberty shop. You could actually, if you sign up for a $5 donation, you could get like an awesome $20 t-shirt worth more than what you pay for the monthly subscription. So why don't you head over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and join our monthly Patriot Pledger Club. We'd be super grateful. Tony Allegra texted in this morning and said, I mentioned on the Rubin Report yesterday about how he got brought up in your conversation with the judge, and Dave gave you both a shout out. Appreciate that, Tony. Thanks so much for repping AP and the judge. Another listener texted in this morning and said, certiorari. That's how it's pronounced. Certiorari. That's why I'm not a judge. I'll let the judge explain how to pronounce that on Wednesday when he comes back on the show. Another listener texted in and asked the question, what about net neutrality? Does my ISP have the right to throttle access to InfoWars or to flat out block it? That was a big question like 10 years ago. And it's funny how that has kind of gone away. I was never a big fan of net neutrality. I didn't support net neutrality. There was really never any danger that the ISPs were going to do that, and they still haven't done that. But the big question with ISPs, I remember in the early days of like broadband internet access, the big question was going to be whether or not broadband would throttle access to certain websites. Well, the question was, would they provide tiered packages on how much data you could download? And they've done that. And honestly, I think that that's actually made the internet a little bit faster and better, because for a while there, and I don't want to get too technical, it was like something like 1% of all internet users were using like 90% of the data. People were going in there and just streaming massive amounts of data and slowing down the network for everyone. And now that they have these tiered plans, if you want to use more data, then you have to pay more for data. But some people have fiber and broadband and are able to, download as much as they want, for the most part. So that danger never really materialized. Another listener texted in this morning and asked the question, parade permit, ? Not sure what you're asking. If you wouldn't mind, just expand on that one. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. All right, let's hit the news. The business world thinks about post-pandemic flexibility is the ability to choose where we work, but being able to choose when we work might be far more important. Listen to this. This is from Axios, a stunning statistic that employees with flexible schedules report 29% higher productivity and 53% greater ability to focus than those with set hours. I believe it. According to the Slack Future Forum's latest research, they surveyed more than 10,000 desk workers around the world. Now, the place also matters, where you do your work, but not nearly as much as when you work. Workers who chose where they worked were 4% more productive than their fully in-person counterparts. So in terms of the remote work discussion, sort of seems to be negligible about your productivity. Whether you're more productive in the office versus productive working at home, it appears as if, you might be 4% more productive if you work at home. Well, productive, that's good for your employee, but maybe you're 90% more productive in, taking care of your family, your dogs, your house, being able to accept packages at your home without having them stolen by porch pirates or what have you, because you can work from home. Your employer gets a 4% benefit, but you personally working from home, where you work, matters a lot to you, I'm sure. But the big statistic, the one that really seems to matter, which is a massive change, 29% higher productivity when you work, not necessarily where you work, but when you work, which calls into question the whole 9-to-5 work week, right? So what's happening, right? Work whenever has allowed a lot of employees to boost their productivity, including parents who make up about a third of the U.S. workforce. And while the 9-to-5 schedule favors early birds, people like me, I'm even earlier than early birds, though, because I'm a before. Time flexibility allows night owls, probably not anybody who watches this show, right? Because you're up bright and early, allows night owls to work during their sharpest hours. The workers are almost, of course they are, almost universally in favor of flexibility when it comes to where and when they work. But of course, executives disagree, and they're calling employees back to the office. Get back to work. Get back to the mines. Slave away. It's time for you to go to work. You work 9 to 5 here. I don't know. For me, if you're productive, I don't necessarily care when you work, as long as all of the deadlines are getting hit. Something got to get done by a certain time. I don't care when you get it done, as long as it gets done by that certain time, right? I need this by this, this by this, this by this, right? If you're going to take a Coke break or something during the hour. No, not that kind of Coke, you weird druggies. You're going to take a Coke break, you're going to go out there and you're going to have a Coke, and then you come back and get it done, and, you hit your deadline, that's fine, and you're more productive. But the employers, they're stuck in the dark ages. They're just not hip. They're just not with it. They're just not joining us over on YouTube this morning, but they should, because we're all going to be on YouTube this week, all week. It's a YouTube Blitz at AP for Liberty. When we get back, we'll talk to Vance Ginn, former top economist in the White House under Donald J. Trump. We'll talk to him about that and more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Peterson's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul, made a big investment in chips just before Congress votes on a bill that would give $52 billion in subsidies and tax credits to the chip industry.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. Do not come. Do not come.
Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Well, here's the thing is, why don't you let us know?
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson, and you're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with me, AP. Glad to have you here. Federal officials are trading stock in companies that their agencies oversee. Yeah, not just for Congress critters. Insider trading. They're the government, and you're not. These hidden records show that thousands of senior executive branch employees owned shares of companies whose fates were directly affected by their employers' actions. This is according to a new investigation from the Wall Street Journal. Joining me now to discuss is a man who used to work in the executive branch. These days, he's got much more honest work. Vance Ginn is a senior fellow at Young Americans for Liberty, and he's joining us now. Good morning, Vance. Nice to see you today.
Hey, good morning, Austin. It's a pleasure to be with you and not up in the swamp in D.C.
No kidding. No kidding. I'm glad to be back in Missouri after my trip there, Vance. But, as somebody who's got a lot of insider knowledge and, who had access, worked in Washington, D.C. for a time, you know how dirty and disgusting the swamp can be. So were you surprised when I sent you this article to find out that, executive branch bureaucrats are able to, trade stock in companies that they directly oversee? I mean, if you or I did something like this in the private sector, they'd put us in handcuffs.
Well, that's right, Austin. I was a bit surprised whenever you sent me this link. I haven't seen as much into this just yet. And I know, look, there's some laws against this already where you have insider trading laws and things of that nature. So, maybe it's within that I'm not a lawyer, I'm an economist, but it does not look good when you see that these federal employees in different agencies. There was a great breakdown by the Wall Street Journal of which agencies are have more stock in certain areas or industries, and it just doesn't look good. It looks a lot like collusion, and a big part of this really is how big the government has gotten. I mean, government shouldn't have this much influence on these types of markets to where it shouldn't matter. If we were within the constitutional roles of our government and our federal government here in the United States, it wouldn't matter as much. But unfortunately, we're not. I mean, we have a very large government, very large regulatory state, and these federal bureaucrats, whenever they're coming out and investing in certain areas, it might influence what type of regulations that they want to pass or they want to kill. And that's not the sort of situation that we should have in a more free market capitalism sort of economy.
Yeah, no kidding. If you're just tuning into the show, we're speaking to Vance Ginn. He is the former senior economist in the White House under Donald Trump and a senior fellow at Young Americans for Liberty. Now, Vance, to me, insider trading in the private market, that's a victimless crime. That's my opinion. It's not a popular opinion, but it's my opinion. Hopefully some judge isn't going to fine me $2.7 trillion for having that opinion, but my opinion still stands. But it's completely different when someone who actually has power over a company, somebody who actually can, make a company decide to take a certain action or not to take a certain action, is able to make those kinds of trades. Do you think that, we could solve some of our economic problems by banning people who are in government from being able to trade stocks?
Well, I don't know if it's banning would be the right way, just in having freedom of speech, freedom of ability to go out and invest in the market. But what I would say is whenever I was in the White House and in the federal branch and in these political appointees, like I was at the time as chief economist of the Office of Management and Budget, we had to file disclosures. Whenever I was hired, I had to file what I'm invested in and everything else. So they had accurate description of what's going on. And if you had any transactions, you also had to report those. So there's a lot of reporting that was happening during that period of time that I think should be looked at across all federal employees. I honestly I don't think that they have to report nearly as much as I did. And maybe they should, or it should be in a broad basket, like a diversified portfolio or a mutual fund, something along those lines that's not picking in specific stocks and companies, because then that has a direct connection with any sort of regulations that they're putting out there and really contributing to the profit and loss. That's what's great about the private sector, Austin, right? Is the profit and loss system, and it allows for there to be signals of where we should buy, where we should not, when we're looking at the stock market in general. And unfortunately, those profit and losses are going to be directly influenced by these government bureaucrats. And so there is something that's to be said about, whether it's banning or more information or something along those lines, because that does not look good. And I don't want government bureaucrats to be directing companies of what's happening overall in the private sector. I want the productive free market economy to be doing that overall.
Just as a snarky little segue here, would you recommend that we trade stocks that Nancy Pelosi trades, follow her trades, and just buy whatever she buys or sell whatever she sells?
Oh, man. If we knew that, it may not be a bad idea, especially with her husband, too, right? Her husband seems to be buying all these stocks.
You're just tuning in. We're speaking to Vance Ginn. He is a senior fellow at Young Americans for Liberty. He's an economist. Vance, the state of the economy as it is, Biden's tapping the strategic petroleum reserves. He's trying to get gas prices down. But isn't that funny? Because for years, the Democrats' stated goal, open stated intention, has been that they wanted the gas prices to be high. You'd think that they'd be celebrating.
Well, you would, but of course we have an election coming up. They've got to make sure that gas prices stay low, because I think you're exactly right. They've said that they want oil and gas prices, fossil fuels, to necessarily skyrocket. I mean, Obama said that back in the day. Biden has basically said that now. Many within the Democratic Party have said that they really want oil and gas prices to be higher because they want a higher price on the effect of climate change that's going throughout the economy, according to them. But now that oil and gas prices are high, they see what the effects are. People don't like it. It doesn't poll well. I mean, it's probably going to hurt them quite a bit in the election. I think they were going to get hit hard anyway because of the recession and other sort of economic effects that are going on today. And all these oil and gas prices that are higher just tend to exacerbate the problem. And the problem is government failure. It's too much government in these markets, and they don't really get that part. They're like, okay, let's use the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, to flood a little bit more oil into the marketplace, which is really just a short-term fix, because all the long-term costs are coming from their direct policies of over-regulating, ESG, environmental social governance sort of issues. Just the big government has its noose around the neck of the oil and gas sector, and now they're saying, okay, we're going to throw you all a bone and put a little bit more oil out in the economy and think that gas prices will come down, maybe for a short period of time, but they've got a long-term problem because of their economic policies that they put in place.
Vance, my wife and I were celebrating our first anniversary yesterday, and we decided
Congrats.
Thank you. So we decided that, instead of going out to dinner doing something like that, we were going to have like a little family night where we cooked together and we made one of our favorite dishes, butter chicken. So we went to Walmart to go get some spices here and there, and we didn't buy a whole lot. It was just like one little grocery bag full of spices, and it came out to like $75. Inflation rearing its ugly head. I mean, we bought some cinnamon sticks. I mean, this stuff was expensive, just for some little saffron, a little bit of cinnamon, some things here and there, so we could have a nice meal last night. Not even the chicken, not even the meat, right? Not even like like the cream or anything like that you'd use in the sauce. $75
like protein. You didn't get any protein.
You didn't get any protein, right? For $75. Can this continue along? I mean, the Federal Reserve has got to be sweating right now, Vance. What do we do?
I mean, you're right, Austin. This is hitting Americans right where it hurts, right at their pocketbook, right at their wallet, and in food. I mean, this is a necessity that we all have to have. And we're seeing the direct effects of their bad policies. A lot of times they can kind of cover up what they're doing, and they'll call it that inflation's only growing at 2%, which is what it's been over the last decade plus, by the way they measure it by CPI. And now I think we're influenced through a lot of other ways, and they distort the marketplace, okay? But now we're seeing the reality of the excessive spending by Congress, right? Running $1 trillion deficits year after year. And Biden recently had the audacity to be excited about a $1.4 trillion deficit in last fiscal year 2022. Just ridiculous that we think $1.4 trillion is a good thing. And then the Fed can come in and monetize a lot of that. And we've talked to some about that on this show, but we're seeing the direct effects of this now, of how it affects people at their home, right, with their families. And this is just this is something that we can't continue to deal with. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see this for a longer period of time, because the Fed has not drawn down their balance sheet. It's still $8.8 trillion, a massive amount of money that's on their balance sheet that they flooded through the economy. And food at home prices are up, at least the way they measure it by the Consumer Price Index, by 13% year over year. And then you're like, okay, well, I'll go out. I'll go eat somewhere. Well, that's still up another 8%, right? So no matter where you turn, your prices are going up much faster than average wages. And that's why, if you look at inflation-adjusted wages of the last year, they're down over 3%, meaning that you can't buy, even with your wage gains, you can buy 3% less than you did last year. And if you didn't get that 5% wage increase of the last year, you're even further behind. So, I mean, this is affecting real families all across the United States, and it's something we've got to really stop as quickly as possible. I mean, I'm hopeful, Austin, that will happen after the election, that we have really free market, liberty-minded people will be elected and start to change the tune of what's happening come, in January.
So the cure for our economic melees is to go vote this fall, you'd say?
I think so. I mean, this is a pivotal moment. I know every election is the pivotal, though this is the biggest election ever. But I think there is something key here, that we really are in a world of hurt, and this isn't going to get this. It's going to get worse before they get better. It gets better, right? Unfortunately, but it's something that we've got to start to turn the tide, because if we don't, we're going to be even more hurt. I mean, look, also just real quick is that if you looked at the 1929 stock market crash, and you saw what happened in the next few years, if they had done a different set of policy prescriptions and not expanded the government like Hoover and then FDR did, we would have not had a Great Depression. We wouldn't. We would have had maybe a recession, a deep recession, but it would not have been a Great Depression. And what I'm concerned about now is that we're going to go in a direction of larger and larger government, which is going to put us in a depression.
God, depressing for a Monday morning.
Yeah.
Vance Ginn, Senior Fellow at Young Americans for Liberty. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on the program today and offering us your insight. We'll see you again next week.
All right, Austin. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Good stuff. Do you like Vance Ginn? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Coming up next, Elon Musk is Gonna buy Twitter. It's coming up, maybe in a couple days from now. And he says he might fire as much as 75%. Is it as much as or as many as? As many as? 75%? I have no idea. It's Monday, and I'm going to go to a commercial break, drink some coffee. Maybe I'll come back and my brain will be working. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun. Thank you very much.
Enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have. The facts on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Halloween is coming. The festival of Samhain approaches, and your lazy butt doesn't have a Halloween costume yet? How can you pledge allegiance to the Dark Lord this year and possibly offend everyone at the same time? Visit the AP for Liberty shop and get your shirt today. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. So grab your government is scary tee and tell everyone at the party that you're here to help. Other great seasonal items are available as well, so don't miss out. And visit AP for Liberty Shop today. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning. It's 7:52, and you're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. It's time to rise and freedom. You can text the show this morning at 573-319-1586. Love to hear from you this morning. One listener asked a question and said, what about these bad conglomerates, like companies and decisions with mergers, like CNN with the Discovery-Warner Brothers merger? Are there too many companies merging together, making industries oligopolistic? ? Kroger plus Albertsons merger. I'm going to tell you, my thoughts on that is probably not. I'll tell you why. I think a lot of times these mergers end up being big mistakes. And here's a good example of one. AOL Time Warner. Remember when Time Warner bought AOL and everybody thought AOL, oh God, well, I mean, you know, they sent out CDs to everybody. Of course, you know, their brilliant business plan. You know, America Online, right? You've Got Mail. Remember that? No, you don't? Oh, what? You're too young? God. Now making me feel old. But that was a huge mistake. Remember when Fox News parent company News Corp, Rupert Murdoch bought MySpace for billions of dollars, and now nobody uses MySpace. So I don't really worry about these big corporate mergers because I think oftentimes they're making huge mistakes. Let them make these huge mistakes. I think that it's going to get solved by the free market either way. What you don't want is you don't want the government to step in and say, hey, Bill Gates, you can't have your browser embedded in Microsoft Windows because that's a monopolistic practice. Bill Gates is going to destroy himself with his own idiocy. And while he's out there on Epstein's Island, this is just my opinion, by the way, but he was probably too concerned with underage girls on Epstein's Island to be focused on his business. At least that's what seems his wife divorced him for. She had a big problem with that. And maybe we'll talk about Bill Gates later. Anyways, no, I do think that these big companies going into mergers like this are probably not the kind of thing that needs to be stopped by government because quite often, while it looks like monopolistic or oligopolistic practices, they're making huge mistakes. Just don't let them be too big to fail. When they fail, don't bail them out, right? You should have let the banks go bankrupt back in 2007. You should have let the housing market, when it collapsed, you should have just let it happen. Let the insurance companies that were in there have to pay it, right? If they had to go bankrupt, let them go bankrupt. Oh, but my pension was held in this company. Well, you know, maybe people should be required to pay attention to their finances. Maybe people should be required to pay attention to where they're investing their money. If people had to pay the consequences for their bad decisions, maybe people would make better decisions. No. Maybe I'm just pie in the sky, utopian. No, maybe the government can solve all of our problems. The government, trust me, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you definitely want her in charge of regulating a Kroger and Albertsons merger. She knows a lot about grocery stores, I'll tell you about that. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, yes, these are the people who should be regulating our economy. These are the people who should be telling Bill Gates what to do. That's what we want, right? We want Bill Gates and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to go into a room together and make up a deal of how to regulate Microsoft, right? Is that what we want? You can't be too idealistic with what government can accomplish because, quite frankly, there are limits to what government can do. That's right. Your host of the Wake Up America show is a hardcore libertarian. If you're just finding us because of the Timcast show on Friday night, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate everyone. And if you're joining us on one of our other platforms today, just know we're doing a YouTube Blitz this week where I'm asking all of my listeners and friends and followers to join us on our YouTube account so that we're a little over to the halfway, the path to monetization. So we need to rack up those viewing hours over on YouTube. So please join us this entire week at youtube.com/AP4Liberty. Elon Musk. Oh, God, I love this story. So juicy. Musk has said that he's told his prospective investors in his Twitter purchase, he plans to cut nearly 75% of Twitter's employee base of 7,500 workers, leaving the company with a skeleton crew, according to the report. I know. Studio audience, you're so excited. The newspaper cited documents saying that Elon Musk might fire as many as 75%. I can hear him in Silicon Valley right now. What is that? What are they saying? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. There you go. Oh, they're very upset. They're very upset out there. But frankly, I think it's perfect. But the liberals are all,
How dare you?
And I'm just like, too bad for you. So let's all have a little dance. Elon Musk wants to lay off 75% of Twitter's workforce. If any Twitter employers are watching this right now, because we are streaming over at twitter.com right now, it's not you that I hate individually. It's just the policies that have been enacted by the people who have been in charge of you. And, quite frankly, I think that the censorship on social media has gone too far. Don't you agree? Send me a text, 573-319-1586. Skeleton Crew over there could handle it. I think it'll be great. A Twitter user, though, they call him a Twitter user, I call him Michael Malice, said that people weren't worried about Jeff Bezos' purchase of the Washington Post the same way that they are worried about Musk's Twitter deal. There was a rumor that the White House actually just said is not true, that the White House was going to step in on national security grounds and say that, no, Elon Musk can't buy Twitter because of yada, yada, yada. The White House denied that report, so it appears as if Musk's deal is clear to go through, at least according to what the latest news that we're reading this morning. So Elon Musk cleared to buy Twitter, will fire 75% of his employees, will have a skeleton crew. The moderation teams, the people who silence dissent on the platform, bye-bye. Bye-bye. It's the end of the road. Still I can't let go. All right, no Boys to Men. I can't sing today. I just gonna have to take a break. Go to a commercial break. And when we get back at 8 o'clock, is our kids learning? Is our children learning? That's a George Bush question. Is our children learning? Well, apparently they're not. The pandemic dropped their math scores at the lowest in American history. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up and that frog will boil. It's a lie. but as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans.
The real-world experience.
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
During last Friday's afternoon news dump, it was announced that President Joe Biden's administration had extended the COVID-19 national emergency, despite the president's recent declaration that, quote, the pandemic is over. This national emergency was first declared by President Donald Trump in January 2020 and has been renewed every 90 days since. This makes the 40th ongoing national emergency, and the oldest one of these is related to the 1979 Iran hostage crisis. When the president declares a national emergency, it grants him broad authority to respond to that emergency, such as things like managing means of production, in this case, vaccines and N95 mask manufacturing, as well as other things like sending military troops abroad and other extreme actions like instituting martial law, controlling transportation, and even communication. You'll remember President Trump stirred a controversy over this in recent years when he used his emergency powers to redirect billions of taxpayer dollars to help build the wall at the southern border after Congress declined his request to include the money in a government funding bill. The federal government has confirmed a nationwide shortage of Adderall, months after nearly 2/3 of community pharmacies reported that they were having trouble filling prescriptions. And despite this shortage, the federal government also indicates that it will not raise the drug's production quota for next year. In case you didn't already know, Adderall is a federally controlled substance because of its potential for abuse, and patients in most states can only pick up 1 month's supply at a time, and generally can only do so a few days before their previous prescription runs out. In response to the current shortage, the Food and Drug Administration has recommended that patients speak with their providers about finding alternative methods for treatment. The Drug Enforcement Agency, more commonly referred to as the DEA, every year sets up a production quota for Adderall to establish the quantities made for medical, scientific, and industrial use. Prescriptions for Adderall last year were up 10.4% compared to 2020. Between then and now, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, officials had relaxed federal rules that had required traditional in-person examinations before the prescription of addictive drugs like Adderall and Xanax. And in response to these rule changes, there was a boom in telehealth startup apps that were designed to streamline this relationship between remote providers and their patients. One of these popular telehealth apps, known as Cerebral Inc., is now under federal investigation for deceptive and unfair advertising and marketing practices after the Federal Trade Commission announced that it was stepping up enforcement against companies that, quote, trick or trap consumers into subscription services.
Good morning. Time to rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson, and you're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. The math and reading scores of 4th and 8th graders dropped during the pandemic. The math declines were the largest ever. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us on the Wake Up America show. Glad to have you here. If you're new to the show because you found me over on Timcast, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Glad to have you here bright and early in the morning. The Wake Up America show is Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, a 2-hour-long broadcast full of interviews and monologues and discussion about American freedom. We believe in liberty here, and we're not afraid to say it. We appreciate you coming over here, and if this is your first time joining us this morning, Glad to have you over on YouTube. I'm asking all of our friends and followers who found me through that interview to come and join us over on YouTube today. This week, I'm trying to grow my follower count and my watch time over on YouTube so we can get on the path towards monetization. We're a little bit over halfway there, so I'd love it if you would, if you're watching us on Facebook or on Rumble just this week, and then you can go back to your favorite platform. Visit youtube.com/AP4Liberty to watch and listen to the show. And let's get to the news. 4th and 8th graders fell behind in reading and had the largest ever decline in math, according to this new National Education Assessment, shows the devastating impact of COVID-19 on America's children. These findings came after the National Assessment of Educational Progress pulled the reading and math exams. They usually will call this the nation's report card, and this was a survey that was conducted through the National Center for Education Statistics. This is a branch of the Education Department. But the results of the nation's report card, they claim, are unacceptable and appalling. The U.S. Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, said this last Friday. They said that this is a moment of truth for education. How we respond to this will determine not only our recovery, but our nation's standing in the world. Hey, news for you, newsflash. Our education standards have been going down for quite a long time. You can text the show this morning at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Now, no state or large urban district showed any improvement in math at all, the report said. 8th grade math scores sank in the more than 50 states and jurisdictions that participated in this assessment. The last report card that they did on this was back in 2019, before the start of the pandemic, where schools were shut down and teachers had to do all the online learning. Reporters stated that 8th grade, from this report, show that 8th grade is the gateway to more advanced mathematical course taking, and this is what these students are missing. They're missing these important skills that will prepare them for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math level careers. Now, the average math score of 236 for the 4th grade was 5 points lower than 2019 and 8 points below the 2019 mark for the 8th grade. The reading score of 217 for the 4th grade was down 3 points this year. That's the same decline as the 8th grade score of 260 compared to 2019. Now, these results came about a month after the NAEP released these results, showing that math and reading scores for 9-year-olds, this is 4th graders, fell between 2020 and 2022 by a level not seen in decades. Now, this report card has shown how this health crisis created these disruptions and how virtual learning affected these 4th and 8th graders across the country. The report shows that the pandemic affected all students, but it had a disproportionate effect on the most vulnerable, who fared the worst. Apparently, 4th grade and 8th grade are like the most important years in your educational, in your K through 12 educational career. The 4th grade and 8th grade years are considered to be sort of like the crux points, where you jump off and show, how well you're going to do in the future in your educational process. Scores on the 8th grade math exams declined across most racial and ethnic groups, as well as for lower, middle, and high performing students. 4th grade math scores dropped for all racial and ethnic groups, except for Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders. That's interesting, isn't it? 4th grade math scores drop for all racial and ethnic groups. For some reason, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders managed to do okay throughout that pandemic. Weird, right? I wonder why that is. Send us a text, 573-319-1586. And then, of course, the gaps between white and black students were larger in 2022 than 3 years ago, with greater score declines in math for black and Hispanic students, further widening those gaps. That doesn't surprise me, considering that typically the type of quality of education in the urban areas is going to be worse here in the United States. The Secretary of Education stated that what we're seeing is lower performing students dropping even faster, and we're also seeing students who are not showing declines, students who are at the top. The highest performing students, they were holding steady before the pandemic or even improving, but now all of the students, regardless of their ability, are dropping. That is the point that we need to be taking away from this report. What I don't understand, and maybe my listeners you probably know more about this than I do. What I don't understand is how in the world the United States became the most powerful nation in the world without all of the money and the technology that we have in the modern age, like without all the tablets, without all of the PCs, without all of the new educational standards, without all of the new standardized testing, with all of the new educational standards that we have. You would think that with all of the money and all of the power that the United States has today, that we would be able to produce a better educational system, right? But somehow, without being the most powerful country in the world, leading up to World War II, right? Let's talk about this, right? So, the rise of the American empire from the late 1800s until World War II, the United States was in the empire building phase. Those were the decades when the United States was becoming the most powerful and the richest country in the world. And what was our educational system like? We didn't have a Department of Education. We didn't have computers and laptops and iPads and phones. We didn't have calculators. Students were doing math with a pencil and paper. They had chalkboards. They had one-room schoolhouses. That leads me to believe that the quality of education is not dependent on how much money we spend, right? But how rigorous the standards of the education are. If you go back and you look at the educational standards during the one-room schoolhouse period in the United States, when a lot of students were being homeschooled, I mean, I'm talking about Little House on the Prairie, late 1800s time here in the United States. The quality of education, compared to the United States, the standards were so high. We used to teach kids Latin in the United States. In nominis Patris ex Spiritus Sanctus. Amen. You learned it more nowadays you only learn it if you go to Catholic school. But we used to have much higher standards. We keep lowering the standards and we get worse results. And then the pandemic, of course, made it even worse. Remote learning for students doesn't seem to work. Now, does it work for work? Maybe, but it doesn't seem to be working for students. I'd really be curious about your thoughts on this one. Send me a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. One listener texted and says, I wonder if the PISA International Assessment of 15-year-olds showed a similar drop in lockdown countries. Great question. I don't know the answer to that one. Another listener texted in and says, our kids are doing much better. Our kids are doing much better because of the lockdowns, mainly because we pulled them out and started homeschooling. Yeah, a lot more people did. And frankly, I think those kids are probably better off than the ones who stayed in the public schools. What do you think? Send me a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. All right, when we get back, the IRS destroyed taxpayer documents. It's just another boondoggle over there at the Department of Taxation and Theft. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America Show with Austin Peterson. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us. I believe in liberty. And I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you? I want to ask you today to join Peterson's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Peterson's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupamericashow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul, made a big investment in chips just before Congress votes on a bill that would give $52 billion in subsidies and tax credits to the chip industry.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No. And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. Do not come. Do not come.
Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Well, here's the thing is, why don't you let us know?
Good morning. It's 8:21 and you're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson. Glad to have you here. Sorry for that little delay there. I had a little story that I wanted to get ready for you there here at the last minute, just because, you know, it got me talking over the weekend and I was thinking about it and I wanted to share it with you. So I wanted to pull up this clip. So I had to get that ready for you behind the scenes. We are a one-man show for now, hoping to expand very soon. But this is a story some of you might be familiar with. The story of a woman who died a couple of weeks ago by the name of Sacheen Littlefeather. Have you ever heard of this lady, Sacheen Littlefeather? Well, if you weren't alive in the 1970s, you might not have. But Marlon Brando won the Oscar for Best Actor in the 1970s for The Godfather. And when he won that Oscar, he decided not to give his speech, but he decided to allow this Sacheen Littlefeather to come out on the stage and to give his acceptance speech for the Oscar for him. And this is the speech that she gave. We'll play a little bit for you.
A director named Ingmar Bergman. Often to be most eloquent is to be silent.
You're quite right. The film we've just seen has said it all. I think we should say that those nominated for the best performance by an actor are
Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
Michael Caine in Sleuth.
Laurence Olivier in Sleuth.
Peter O'Toole in The Ruling Class.
Paul Winfield in
And those are
Song.
some big actors back there.
The winner is Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
So Marlon Brando wins the Oscar for Best Actor.
Accepting the award for Marlon Brando and The Godfather, Miss Sacheen Littlefeather.
Sacheen Littlefeather. So, Native American woman. She just died a couple weeks ago. She gave the acceptance speech. No, she won't take it.
Hello, my name is Sacheen Littlefeather. I'm Apache, and I'm president of the National Native American Affirmative Image Committee. I'm representing Marlon Brando this evening, and he has asked me to tell you in a very long speech, which I cannot share with you presently because of time, but I will be glad to share with the press afterwards, that he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award. And the reasons for this being are the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry.
Okay, pause. Now, the video for some reason isn't showing up over here, but I've got the other one. So this was a big controversy because they accused John Wayne of having to be held back and restrained from apparently like physically attacking her. But this is, and years later, they tried to cancel Clint Eastwood over this and other things. But he gets up here and insulted her. Now, take a listen. This was
Mr. Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood comes up there. There comes the man.
I don't know if I should present this award on behalf of all the cowboys shot in all the John Ford westerns over the years.
So he goes up there and says, makes a joke because of, Sacheen Littlefeather complaining about the plight of Native Americans in film. At the time, there was like a siege going on at not the Battle of Little Round Top, but the Custer's Last Stand. But Sacheen Littlefeather died 2 weeks ago. She gave her career working in Hollywood as sort of a Native American go-between between Hollywood and the Native American community. Well, what's fascinating is this little headline right here. Let's pull this up right here. Can you see this on your account here? Sacheen Little. Let me see if I can make it bigger for you here with the Twitter weirdness. Sorry, it's been a little odd here for you today, but I'll go ahead and expand this so you can see this headline. Sacheen Littlefeather faked Native American ancestry, says her family. Yes, that's right. The woman who got up there on stage to accept Marlon Brando's award and to complain about the plight of Native Americans was not Native American. Maybe she was related to Elizabeth Warren. I don't know, but I just find this fascinating and hilarious, especially because Halloween is coming up and we're discussing cultural appropriation. And anybody who dares to show up in a Halloween costume this year in a Native American garb can just say, oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm not pretending to be Native American. I'm pretending to be Sacheen Littlefeather, who was Mexican and white. So you can text the show at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. That's right. Another fake Indian, another fake Native American, Sacheen Littlefeather. And of course, she had to die 2 weeks ago. And then her family comes out and says, well, she actually wasn't Native American the whole time. She was actually just white and Mexican. What is it with these white chicks appropriating other cultures and then calling out other people for appropriating cultures? These white liberal females, I'll tell you. Well, she's half Mexican, so I guess we can give her a pass. What do you think? Coming up next on the Wake Up America show, does smiling, even if you're not happy, help make you feel happier? Well, another study came out and determined whether or not that's the case. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
My name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
the real-world experience.
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning. It's 8:32, and you're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show with Austin Peterson at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here. Does faking a smile make you happier? The latest findings are in, according to ScienceAlert.com. Now, this is a question that's actually been debated for a longer time than you might expect. You might think, oh, well, maybe this is a discussion going back to the 1970s, but it does go back to the 70s, just not the 1970s, the 1870s. Famed naturalist Charles Darwin actually published a book on the subject in 1872. Darwin wrote that the free expression by outward signs of an emotion intensify it. Even the simulation of an emotion tends to arouse it in our minds. I wonder what other kind of emotions and feelings you might be able to arouse simply by thinking about it. I don't know, just maybe I won't stand up for now. Popular culture has perpetuated this idea. For example, Nat King Cole wrote in 1954 his hit song Smile. Smile though your heart is aching. You'll find his life is still worthwhile if you just smile. But does this popular notion stand up to the scientific scrutiny? It's a good question. There was a study done in 1988 that asked people to hold a pen with their teeth to simulate smiling, or with their lips to simulate a neutral expression. So let's see, like this. So hold it here. All right. Everybody who's watching now and listening has to grab a pen, the nearest thing or whatever, pen-shaped object, and go like that. Stick it in there and hold it like this. And tell me, hold it there like that. Now you got to hold it for a half an hour. And tell me if you actually feel happier. No, you're feeling happier because you're watching my show and I'm making you laugh, are you, right? Well, the study found that smiling without being aware of it made people feel more amused when they were shown a cartoon. But there was a 2016, what they call a meta-analysis, that compiled the data from 17 other studies that used the pen and mouth trick, and they found that they could not replicate the original findings. Yeah, I know, right? Not happy. But research has carried out other studies, though, with various methods over the years to examine how what's written on our faces affects how we feel. There was a 2019 review of 138. 138? Can you imagine how interested people would have to be in this in order for there to have been 138 studies? I think the real question in all of this is, why do people care this much about this? Why did Charles Darwin write a book about this? You know what I think the reason for that is? I think that it's because depression is more common than we think. People are probably desperate to try and find ways to be happy artificially because they're naturally pretty depressed, which is sad if you think about it. What do you think, though? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. Researchers looked at this on 138 studies. They found that, in fact, smiling influences people's emotions, yes, but the effect was only small. So it's not going to cure your depression, but by smiling, you may actually feel a little bit better. Researchers are now recruiting thousands of people from all over the world, and they're putting this effect to the test again. Excuse me, a little hiccup there. They published a new study in the Nature of Human Behavior. They had 3,800 volunteers from about 19 countries. They were asked to smile or to maintain a neutral expression using several different prompts, and then they were asked to rate their happiness. If volunteers knew what they were studying, then that could influence how they rated smiling interventions. So they invented some decoy experiments to throw volunteers off the scent. They pretended to be studying how small movements and distractions affected math-solving abilities, and then they issued decoy instructions like place your left hand behind your head and blink your eyes once per second for 5 seconds, right? Then 3 different 5-second smiling interventions were mixed in with the decoy tasks in random order. But for one of the tasks, volunteers had to put a pen between their teeth or hold it with their lips. And that was a copy of the 1988 study that with some slight adjustments. They didn't use like cartoons in this one. And then happiness was measured instead of amusement at the end of the task. And then in the second task that they gave the volunteers, they had to mimic a photo of an actor smiling or maintaining a blank expression. And then they gave them a third task, and the researchers asked participants to just put on a happy expression by either moving the corners of their lips towards their ears and elevating their cheeks, or maintaining a blank facial posture. After each of the tasks, including like the decoy tasks, which they call a control in scientific experiments, They completed a simple math problem and then a happiness and anxiety questionnaire, and anger, tiredness, and confusion to kind of obscure the purpose of the study, because they didn't want them to just ask about their happiness and then that could mess it up. They wanted them to not know exactly what they were studying, but the feelings of happiness actually increased in every smiling intervention. But the effect was greater when they actually had to mimic someone and the facial action task than in the pen and mouth. In other words, if they saw a picture of Tom Cruise smiling and they were told, give that smile, that was actually what helped them to feel a little bit better or happier versus just like taking the pen, putting in your teeth and fake smiling, which leads me to believe that a lot of this is a social aspect, right? So if you see someone smiling, sorry about that. Just had a little bit of audio troubles. It cut out there and had to go to a transition. Hopefully things will be okay for now. A little bit of issues. Been having some audio issues. Got to get those bugs worked out this week. Hopefully we'll get that solved. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. But anyways, the point that I was making is just simply that I think that probably the happiness has to do with more of social cues. So if you're artificially smiling, putting the pen in your mouth, just smiling artificially and not like seeing another person being happy, then that's probably not going to work, right? And that's what this study showed. But when they saw a picture of someone smiling and they were asked to mimic the picture, then they actually did, then the person actually did feel better, which to me shows that in order to feel happier, you probably need to smile as a result of seeing someone else smiling. What do you think? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. One listener texted in with a Henry David Thoreau quote, said that the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. So true. What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. From the desperate city, you go into the desperate country and have to console yourself with the bravery of minks and muskrats. Yes, a stereotype but unconscious despair is concealed even under what are called the games and amusements of mankind. There is no play in them, for this comes after work, but it is a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things. I totally agree, which leads me to wonder just how depressed society is and how much, happiness is a social aspect. I guess probably the ultimate conclusion of this one, and we've gotten really into the weeds, so I'll just conclude with saying this. Probably the conclusion for this is that you yourself can spread happiness just by giving people a smile, right? Smile more, right? Spread happiness. If you're a naturally happy person, my wife, Stephanie, is just like the happiest person ever. So I think we just need to send her out in the community and just smile at everybody. If you're depressed, come over to our house. We'll play some games. We'll make you some curry chicken, and Stephanie will smile. And you'll feel better, right? If you're feeling depressed, right? We'll get you out of that funk, make you feel better. When we come back, was The Karate Kid, the original 1984 movie, too white? That's the question that people are asking. And I'm going to have to crane kick somebody to the head, I guess. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit SaluteHeroes.org to learn more.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
Had enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, the facts, on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
It's me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Halloween is coming. The festival of Samhain approaches, and your lazy butt doesn't have a Halloween costume yet? How can you pledge allegiance to the Dark Lord this year and possibly offend everyone at the same time? Visit the AP for Liberty shop and get your shirt today. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. So grab your government is scary tea and tell everyone at the party that you're here to help. Other great seasonal items are available as well, so don't miss out. Then visit AP for Liberty Shop today. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning. It's Austin Peterson here with the Wake Up America show. Thanks so much. It's time for rising and freedoming. Man, it's been a hard few days here. I got a little cold on my trip to Washington, D.C., and I come back a little out of practice here. I've had a little technical issues this morning, nothing we can't fix. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening to us later. The Wake Up America show podcast gets uploaded every single day after the show. You can always capture the archives as well. Audio and video archives that's posted over on the website. If you're ever looking for an episode from a previous date, we upload them over at wakeupamericashow.com/archives. All right, let's hit the next story. Ralph Macchio is taking a crane kick to criticisms that the Karate Kid was too white. Macchio said in this week's issue of Stellar Magazine that people have said it's a very white cast that didn't dive into the Asian story. At least that's what people are saying. The 60-year-old actor, yes, 60 years old. That's how old Ralph Macchio is. Do you feel old yet? Said that the 1984 classic where he starred alongside Noriyuki Pat Morita as a new kid in town bullied by his school's crew of karate menaces was actually progressive in its approach to the Asian American experience. He says that the film was ahead of its time because it was a popcorn movie that talked about Japanese internment camps during World War II. Totally agree with him there. He said Mr. Miyagi, always said in the scene when, when it was revealed that Mr. Miyagi lost his wife and child in the camps, that Machio said that adding that scene where Morita's character was drunk was poignant to the Japanese American actor. Pat himself actually spent 2 years in the camp. So it had double meaning and some depth. This is, for those of you who are, new to history, or perhaps you've only recently taken the red pill in politics, you might not know from that period in American history when Japanese Americans were actually put into internment camps here in the United States, of course, thanks to the great tyrannical progressive Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I didn't actually even know that Mr. Miyagi himself spent 2 years in the camps as a young boy. Ralph Macchio, he's a Long Island native. He went on to act in 2 Karate Kid sequels, and he's currently starring, of course, in the new spin-off series Cobra Kai. Is out there promoting his new book, Waxing On the Karate Kid in Me, where he talked about how that drunken scene where Mr. Miyagi reveals his heroism, winning the Medal of Honor, almost didn't make the cut because Macchio says that the studio executives said that they felt like the scene took too long, and their concern was that the movie was running over 2 hours. They would lose screening time and essentially money in the process. But once the director told Macchio, they shut up once they screened it for them and they saw this story. That's a fascinating tale, too, for those who aren't familiar with the history. The 444th Fighting Brigade in World War II were made up of Japanese Americans. And of course, they didn't take the Japanese Americans who decided to fight on behalf of the United States during World War II. Of course, they weren't sent to fight against, their fellow Japanese in the Pacific. So they sent them to Europe. And during World War II, the 444th Brigade actually saved the lives of many Americans. And it's a fascinating tale in World War II history. If you've never heard of it, I highly recommend that you take a look. The 444th Air Expeditionary Wing. No, actually, I've got that wrong. It's not the 444th, but at 444 Japanese Americans, W2. Sorry, I want to get this correct for you. The 442nd, the 442nd Infantry Regiment of World War II. They were an infantry regiment of the United States Army. They were the most decorated in U.S. military history, and as a fighting unit composed entirely of second-generation American soldiers of Japanese ancestry who fought in World War II. They fought primarily in the European theater, in Italy, southern France, and Germany. Again, the most decorated unit for their size in U.S. military history. They were created as the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, and they fought primarily in Europe. Fantastic history. You can check them out. Again, one of the most decorated and a fantastic bit of history there. But what was interesting was that the movie Karate Kid only briefly touched on the fact that Mr. Miyagi, his character, Pat Morita's character, was in that group and in that story. This is fictional now. His wife and child died in the internment camps while Mr. Miyagi was out fighting for American freedom, which I think really makes the Karate Kid. That scene is what I think makes that movie truly great, because otherwise it would just be a popcorn movie about an underdog who comes from behind, kind of like, Rocky in a sense, right? Karate Kid is just Rocky, but with a different martial art. But the criticism about it being too white, it sort of harkens back to this story that reminds me of back in Seinfeld days. Do you remember when people were trying to cancel Seinfeld because they did that episode where Seinfeld talked about, being gay, and that famous quote came out of Seinfeld where he said, "Not that there's anything wrong with that." Well, just a few years ago, leftists were trying to cancel Seinfeld because they were saying, well, the show was not progressive because Seinfeld was just like, oh, not that there's anything wrong with that. Not that there should be anything wrong with that, right? Cancel Seinfeld, cancel Seinfeld. But what you have to understand that at that time period in the 1990s, that was very progressive, that Seinfeld would actually openly state, not that there's anything wrong with that the show would address homosexuality, because again, it's 2022 right now, but in the early to mid 1990s, it was not common for there to be gay characters on television or for gay characters to be portrayed in a positive light. So it was progressive for Seinfeld to say, Not that there's anything wrong with that. So in the context of the time, in the early 1980s, when the Karate Kid film came out, the fact that Mr. Miyagi was being portrayed and talking about his history, winning the Medal of Honor in the 442nd Infantry Unit, and that, talking about him being in the, could we call them concentration camps here in the United States? Is that intellectually honest? I'm not sure. To call them camps, I think detainment camps, internment camps, I think is, probably the most intellectually honest version of that. But it obviously was a heinous crime committed against American citizens to be interned. And the fact that introduced that concept to many Americans at the time, quite frankly, I think was, the classical term of progressive. I think that was quite progressive. But to dismiss it as being a cast of two white, are Italians white? I thought Ralph Macchio is Italian. Are Italians white now? Have they been integrated into society? Are you white enough? Is that what it is? Because right now the left is trying to make the Hispanics who have gone to the Republican Party out as being white. The lighter their skin gets. I don't know. It makes no sense. That's why I'm not a leftist. That's why I'm a hardcore libertarian Republican. I believe in truth, justice, and the American way, economic freedom, and personal liberty. My voice is pretty much gone. It's like shot. Hopefully I'll have a little bit for you tomorrow. So I'm going to save some and let you go now about a minute or two early. Thanks for watching the show. Remember, all week, YouTube Blitz. We're going to watch the show on YouTube all week, Monday through Friday, on YouTube at youtube.com/AP for Liberty. I'm going to go work on my audio issues, figure out what's going on over there. So hopefully we don't have any of that. Thank you for watching the show. If you're new and you found me on Timcast on Friday night, welcome. Thank you so much for your support. Glad to have you over here. Please introduce yourself to the community. We're glad to have you here amongst our crew on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Morning again in America. Our country is prouder and stronger and better.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.